Alright everyone, it took me a few extra days to actually bother to report on this because I was convinced at first that it was literally fake news. I was convinced this was like a bunch of other groups got gagged by The Onion, and so like The Onion or the Daily Current or something like that, or the Babylon Bee, they came out with like this story, and then other news services, somehow something got lost along the way in a game of telephone and they took it seriously. That's not apparently the case. This is apparently real, which makes me feel good that I don't live in San Francisco. The city is planning to pay decent six-figure salaries to people who are willing to go around as part of poop removal crews. That's what they're apparently calling them. Apparently the problem with homelessness and with presumably at this point people who can't fucking pay their plumbing bill. The problem is so advanced now that they have to have some dozens of people, I guess, wander around the city at high expense with trucks. They can spray the poo down off the road, scoop the poo, and I don't know what, they're probably going to compost it to grow their weed or something. It'll probably lead to a public health crisis. How much longer before I can just say San Francisco is literally unlivable? You've got the tale of a place which is so much the haves versus the have-nots in every possible sense, and it's led by people who are like, they wave little socialist flags and stuff. So you're telling me that the far left, in the one place where they have absolute control, like the state of California is hyper-liberal, the city of San Francisco is hyper-liberal, and it faces very little in the way of pushback for liberal policies, because, you know, everyone basically agrees with it. You're telling me that in the one place they have nominally full command of everything, that it is a high-tax hellhole. That makes sense. But that also it's basically a story of, hey, this Silicon Valley exec here has a 40-room mansion over there, and right next door there is this micro-apartment tenement where people pay... I looked at the rental prices because it's amusing to do so. Comparing them to here and then also comparing them to like southern Texas. It's night and day. The same, if you were to pay $3,500 a month in rent for a place in San Francisco, it's going to be a small end, like, sub-micro apartment. It's going to be basically a 3-room affair. You're going to have a bedroom, a small bathroom, and then maybe you'll have, like, a little suite office area. And that's what $3,500 or so a month will get you in the city of San Francisco. You have to go about 10 miles outside of the city limits to find the same thing for only like $3,000 a month. You look at that. So yeah, San Francisco's got some problems. For $3,500 a month here in the state of Vermont, you can get 2 fucking townhouses, you know, 2-bedroom, 2-bath affairs. Or you can get a really, really nice McMansion going. In southern Texas, it'd practically be 2 McMansions. That's not even an exaggeration. Look, you'd be saving up to buy, like, it'd take you like 6 months to have enough money together if you saved that and just lived out of a fucking trailer to buy a starter home in southern Texas. In San Francisco, you know how much houses cost there? I looked once, and I think there was only like 1 or 2 offerings under $1 million, and they were literal hovels. We're talking crack shacks that had partially burned down. So now not only do they have this problem of massive wealth inequality, you've got you've got one person, he has 10 bathrooms all encrusted in gold and diamonds. And then you have thousands of people that are homeless and have to shit on the streets. Like, the city apparently doesn't even offer them anywhere to shit. Like, they can't even put up a few porta potties. Silicon Valley is largely ruined. What was a fairly nice city like half a century ago, it's sort of like the tale of Chicago. Chicago, if you go back, you know, not even a century, it was considered beautiful, and they have the White City, which was like I believe it was made of marble at the time for one of the World's Fairs, and they built a mini city in a city. And it was considered like, practically one of the fucking wonders of the world. It's like pure, I think it was a little later in the Art Deco period. It was at the dawn of the 20th century. It was considered wonderful, and now it's like, oh yeah, we only had 50 shootings this weekend. Huzzah, crime has fallen. That's not a joke. In all of these places. And invariably, who runs these locations? Which political party runs them? Which political ideology within that party, usually? Chicago is run by hardline leftists. It's not run by, like, business Democrats. New York City is kind of used to be during its, you know, boom time when I think it was Giuliani stepped into fuck crime over. Now it's degrading again, having more problems because it's back under far-left leadership. It's not really the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not monolithic. It's really the segment of the Democratic Party that has a tendency to be more locally active, which tends to be the further left. Now, it's sort of like comparing, maybe the business Republicans, like the Trump populist crowd, comparing them with like a Rick Santorum. There's not really that big of a similarity between them. When you get to the point, though, as a city where the homeless problem in particular and street shitting in general because of poverty has become so prevalent, you literally have to hire people and you have to pay them $180 plus fucking $1,000 a year in order to go around. By the way, that may sound like a lot, but because of the cost of living and certainly the rent prices, yeah, they'll still be living two people to an apartment. To pick up other people's fucking shit in the most literal sense. Oh, I'm only making 180 grand. Yeah, I'm barely in the margins of the lower middle class in San Francisco. You know how much money that is? Basically any civilized part of the United States. If you're making that much, I think it makes you almost basically a 1%er in the state of Vermont. It's like, I think the cutoff here is like 110K a year or something. Basically, oddly enough, if you're a blue-collar worker, you tend to make more than if you're in the managerial class. There are people, there'll be a plumber or an architect or something, they're pushing 6 figures, and someone's like middle management, they make like 3-4K a month in salary. In San Francisco, you probably have to pay a janitor $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and they live in squalor. They're like, yeah, I'm living in an RV on the outskirts here, and I have to commute an hour to fucking work just to make ends meet. Yesterday I ate a hamburger. No, I mean, that's for all 3 meals. I just cut it into 3 pieces. That's how people live in San Francisco. It's like, here we have the political ideology, and there's no pushback at all. Nothing can stand in their way of imposing whatever city ordinances they want. California is far blue. They won't stand in their way. Ninth Circuit is liberal. They won't stand in their way. Yet they still want to blame other people for the shitty dystopia that they've created. Meanwhile, these people protest are like, oh, Silicon Valley, get out of here. At this point, if Silicon Valley did get out of San Francisco, it'd be even worse. Your prices would collapse. Everyone who holds those properties would undercut them and sell them, and you'd have basically the mass ghettoization of the entire city. It would look like a war-torn country within a decade. That's the horrible part, and you think of one other horrible thing. I just want to put something out here that I haven't really heard people think about. It has nothing to do with poo, has nothing to do with humans at all. Where did Silicon Valley decide to locate all of the world's most important communications headquarters? Is it in the middle of an earthquake-prone zone that could snap off and fucking end up a mile below the bay at any given time, the next time a big one hits? Yeah, that could be a little bit of a problem. Is it in an area that could suffer a catastrophic tsunami because of that one fault that's not that far north off the coast of Oregon and Washington State? Yeah, they located it there. Wonderful. Simply, is it in an area that's coastal and therefore is more easy to attack from like the sea or something if we get into a major nuclear conflict or something? Oh yeah, they located it there. Literally in the worst fucking possible location they could put it. We should be encouraging these groups to move to Texas. Move to northern Texas. Well, I know the Texans wouldn't want them because it'd bring in a surge of Californian liberalization. Texas is already having that problem. By the way, it's not going to turn it blue. You're talking about needing a couple million more people while the Texas population is rapidly increasing locally anyway. Not a problem. I think it sounds like dystopia. The idea of commuting for 2 hours a day to make a 6-figure salary and still be living off ramen while you walk down, so you can't afford a car, so you're walking down crime-ridden streets that are filled with feces. That sounds like a hellhole to me. Why would you even want to live there? If I were like, you get an offer from Facebook, oh, we'll give you $250,000 a year. What's the fucking point? You're still living in hell. What's the point of the only point of making that salary is, hey, I am going to live in the micro apartment or the RV still, and I'm going to squirrel away $100K a year, and in 5 years, I'm going to fucking leave. I'm going to become my own investor. I'm going to Texas or something. $500,000 there, you could probably live for, 20, 30 fucking years in Texas and live like a king doing it. It's like, I don't understand why anyone would want to be in San Francisco. If you're there, it's like, I feel sorry for you. To any of my subscribers that are in or around San Francisco, I'm very sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for the circumstances of your birth and or where you chose to move for your job. It must be like hell. That's about all. Peace out.